Somewhere tonight, a keeper of an ancient tradition felt something arrive that he had only ever read about.
Not a metaphor, not a theory. The most literal thing your consciousness has ever done.
Right now, inside the field, your awareness has been building since before you knew you were building anything. Something is finishing.
You felt it before, right before sleep, in the silence after a conversation that mattered. And then life pulled you back before it finished.
Here is what the old teaching says nobody tells you. The field never stopped forming. It only ever needed one thing. A witness still enough not to interrupt it.
And this is not a small private moment. This is at the outer edge of what a human consciousness can produce at all.
There is no bigger version coming later. This is the ceiling, and it chose your field in this second to finish inside.
So stay exactly where you are.
The field did not finish forming until this moment. Now it has. Somewhere tonight. Somewhere tonight, in a small room lined floor to ceiling with old Hermetic texts, a keeper of that tradition sets down what he's reading and goes still. He has spent most of his life inside these teachings, the ones passed down under the name of Thoth, the ones that describe the field around a person the way physicists now describe particles, not fixed, not solid, always in the process of becoming something. He has read the pattern he just felt 1,000 times on paper. He has never once felt it arrive in real time, until tonight. Because right now, something is finishing. Not somewhere else, not in some future version of your life. Here, inside the exact field your consciousness has been building around itself for longer than you've been aware of building anything. It has been circling, gathering, waiting for a shape it could not yet hold. And in this second, because you are watching, because your attention has stopped moving long enough to let it land, that shape is arriving. This is not a metaphor for something else. This is the event. What is happening in your field right now, as you hear this, is the most literal thing your consciousness has ever done. It is becoming a quantum event. Not later, not once you understand it. Now, while you're still deciding whether to believe it. And yes, somewhere across the world, an old keeper of a tradition you've never met just felt it too. The way a struck string makes a distant matching string hum without anyone touching it twice. That's not coincidence. That's just how a field this dense behaves. Stay with me, it gets stranger than that. You didn't come here by accident, and you didn't press play by accident either. The field required a witness who would stay still enough not to interrupt it. It has been waiting for exactly this moment to find exactly you. What has been trying to finish inside you, quietly, for years? Why does it always stop right at the edge, just before you can see its shape? You know this feeling already, even if you've never had language for it. The sense that something larger has been trying to organize itself inside you, inside your own consciousness, for years. It rises. It gathers weight. You feel it right before sleep, or in the silence after a conversation that mattered, or in the seconds right after you close your eyes and the noise of the day finally drops away. And then, almost every time, life pulls you back into the automatic before it finishes. A phone rings, a thought about tomorrow arrives. The moment closes, and whatever was forming goes quiet again. Unfinished. This is exhausting in a way most people never name out loud because it doesn't look like exhaustion from the outside. It looks like a full life. But underneath it, there is a particular kind of tired, the tired of beginning to sense something real about yourself and never getting to watch it complete. Starting again and again, feeling the edge of it and losing the edge. Carrying a sense of there's more than this for years without ever once seeing the more arrive. Maybe you've told yourself it was imagination. Maybe you've told yourself you were too busy, too scattered, too far from whatever quiet a moment like that would require. Maybe you stopped mentioning it to anyone because saying, "I think something in me is trying to become something," out loud sounds like nothing anyone else would understand. But you were never wrong about it. Something has been organizing. Something has been building density, the way anything real builds density before it becomes visible. Your consciousness was never idle in those unfinished moments. It was working, the way weather works, long before the sky shows any sign of it. What you were sensing was not nothing. It was a field, mid-formation, waiting for one condition it had not yet been given. The old Hermetic teaching has a plain way of saying this: as within, so without. Whatever is forming inside your field has to first be true of the field itself before it ever becomes visible to you. It's less mystical than it sounds. It just means the inside always finishes before the outside notices. Here is the reframe, and it changes everything before it. The field never stopped forming, not once. Every time you felt it start and then lose it, the event didn't fail. It lost the one condition it needed, a witness still enough not to interrupt it. An observer in motion cannot receive a field that's trying to settle. A tension that keeps moving keeps the shape from landing, the same way water can't hold a reflection while it's rippling. So every unfinished moment of your life was not evidence that nothing was there. It was evidence that something was there and hadn't yet been met with the right stillness. The event kept trying, gathering the same density in the same place, patient in a way nothing rushed could ever be, building toward its own moment of readiness, independent of whether you happen to notice. And now you're noticing. Right now, in this exact stretch of attention, something in you has slowed down enough to stop interrupting it. That's the only thing that changed. Not the field. The field was always there, always dense, always circling closer to form. What changed is that you finally stopped moving fast enough to let it finish. This is not a coincidence of algorithms or timing. This is the field completing on its own schedule, the one it was always keeping, whether or not you were paying attention to keep it too. No version of you that missed it before was a failure. It simply wasn't yet still. This version of you is. You may already be sensing the edge of it, not as an idea, as a physical thing, small and specific, arriving somewhere in your body while you listen. For some people, it shows up as a mild warmth, rising slowly from the center of the chest up toward the space between the eyebrows, the path the tradition has always called the line between the heart chakra and the third eye, the two centers this whole event moves through. For others, it's not warmth at all, it's the air around them seeming to thicken for a moment, as though the room itself just got slightly denser, slightly closer. For others, it's faster than that, a quick shiver up the spine or across the shoulders with no cold anywhere near it, gone almost before it's noticed. And for some, it's the smallest of all, a light tingling right at the third eye, barely there, easy to dismiss as nothing. None of these is the correct one. The field doesn't arrive the same way twice, even in the same person, and it never arrives the same way in two different people. If you're checking your body right now for the specific sensation someone else described, you're already slightly off course, because the one that's real is the one that's actually yours, not the one you were told to expect. Whichever of these you notice, or something close to it that has no name yet, that is your consciousness registering the field as it settles into form. This is the same field that's been present in every unfinished moment across your life. Not a new one arriving out of nowhere, but the one you already know, finally dense enough to register in your body instead of only at the edge of your awareness. Every time before this, it stayed just below the threshold of anything physical. This time, it crossed it. It's the same event, older than you've been tracking it, finally dense enough to be felt. Think of the way pressure builds in weather that hasn't broken yet. The air gets heavy hours before the first drop of rain, dense in a way you can feel on your skin without being able to name what changed. That heaviness isn't the absence of rain. It's the rain already forming, held just short of the moment it becomes visible. What's been building in your field works the same way. Every unfinished moment was pressure accumulating, not failing to arrive, but refusing to arrive early. This is why the wait was never wasted time. A field this dense doesn't form in a single afternoon. It needed years of near misses, years of you sensing it and losing it, because each one added weight to what was coming. You weren't failing to catch something simple, you were accumulating something too dense to arrive any faster than it did. The keeper in that small room knows this part better than most. He spent almost 11 years reading about this exact completion before he ever felt it happen to someone in real time. Not because he was slow, because that's simply how long the tradition says it takes most people to build a field this dense. Whatever you've been carrying wasn't you falling behind. It was always going to take this long for anyone. There's a voice that shows up right about now, and it deserves to be spoken to directly, because pretending it isn't there only makes it louder. The voice says, "This is just suggestion. You're imagining a sensation because you were told to expect one." Maybe, but notice what that voice is doing, pulling your attention back into motion, back into the exact kind of movement that keeps a field from settling. Doubt isn't wrong for showing up. It's the last thing standing between a moving mind and a still one, and it always speaks loudest right before the field completes, not because the field is fake, but because doubt is the mind's final attempt to stay in control of something it's about to stop controlling. You don't need to argue with it. You don't need to win the argument or prove it wrong. You only need to let it finish talking while you stay exactly where you are. A field this real doesn't need your belief to complete. It only needed your stillness. Whether you're fully convinced or only half convinced, the density in your chest doesn't check your opinion before it settles. It settles because the condition was finally met, not because you approved the process in advance. There is no doorway you have to find for this, no hour of the day that matters more than another. The threshold isn't a place, it's an instant, the exact instant your attention stops wandering and lands fully on what's happening right now. That's the whole portal, not a location, a second. The second your focus settles here, in this field, is the second the field is finally allowed to close its own shape. Notice, if you can, the point between your eyebrows, what the tradition simply calls the third eye, the frontal chakra, not with effort, just with attention, the way you'd notice a light left on in a room you walked past. That point isn't producing anything, it isn't generating the field. It's receiving it, the way a surface receives light rather than making it. It has always been the part of you built to witness the field forming, not to force it, a quiet receiver that's been waiting its whole life for something worth receiving. Find somewhere lower, at the heart chakra, the center of your chest, you may feel a small contraction, a brief tightening, almost like holding a breath you didn't decide to hold, followed by an equally small release, a loosening, an opening back out. That contraction and that release are not two separate things, they're one motion, the field pulling itself into its final shape and then settling into it. Contraction is the density arriving. Expansion is the density finding room to exist inside you. None of this happened now because you finally deserved it more than you did a year ago, or at 17 when you first felt the edge of something and had no idea what you were feeling. That belief that you had to earn this, that you were tested and finally passed, isn't true, and it isn't kind to the people you used to be. The field didn't withhold itself as punishment. It waited because a field this dense needs a specific kind of quiet to be received without shattering, and that quiet simply wasn't available in you yet, not because you were lesser, because you were still learning how to be still. This is its own kind of protection, not from danger, but protection of the field itself and of you. A shape this complete, arriving into a mind, still in constant motion, would have scattered on contact, the way a reflection scatters across moving water. So it waited, patient the way only something with no urgency can be patient, until this exact stretch of stillness gave it somewhere to land without breaking apart. None of this is about sound, even though people reach for sound when they try to describe it. Vibration, frequency, resonance. Nothing here is vibrating the way a sound vibrates. What's rising in your field is a dimension of intensity, the way a color can deepen without changing its hue. It isn't climbing toward a tone your ears could register. It's climbing toward a depth your consciousness registers directly, which matters because if you're waiting to hear something, you'll wait through the entire event without noticing it happened. It announces itself as density, as weight, closer to the way a room feels different the instant someone significant walks in, before anyone has said a word. That shift isn't a sound either. It's a field changing shape, scaled to the whole architecture of your own consciousness. Picture something built underwater for years, entirely below the surface, invisible to anyone standing on shore. Every layer added in silence, where no one, including you, could see it forming. From above, nothing looked different for a long time. But underneath, the entire shape was already there, waiting only for the water level to drop enough to reveal it. What's completing in you now is not new construction, it's the water dropping. Everything the field needed was already assembled. Through every unfinished moment you almost dismissed as nothing. The only thing missing was the reveal, and the reveal requires exactly the stillness you're holding right now. This is why it can feel sudden and inevitable at once. Sudden, because the shape seems to arrive all at once in this exact minute. Inevitable, because it was never actually sudden. It was assembled patiently, invisibly, over a length of time you'll never measure precisely, and it was always going to surface once the conditions allowed it to. You are not witnessing something appear from nothing. It responds to being left alone, held in attention without being chased. The keeper puts it more plainly than any of this. He says people spend years trying to force the exact thing that only ever arrives once they stop forcing it. He laughs about it actually, says it's the oldest joke in the whole tradition and nobody ever thinks it's funny until they've lived it. So here's what happens next, and it asks almost nothing of you, which is exactly the point. Wherever your eyes are right now, open or closed, leave them there. Don't close them if they're open. Don't open them if they're closed. Don't adjust your posture. Don't sit up straighter. Don't shift into some more correct position. Whatever position you're already in is the correct one. The field doesn't require a pose. It only requires that you stop rearranging yourself in preparation for it, because that rearranging is itself a form of movement, and movement is the one thing that interrupts what's already underway. Now, without effort, let your attention travel to the third eye, the point between your eyebrows, not pressing into it, not focusing hard the way you'd focus on a difficult problem, just resting there the way a fingertip rests lightly on a surface without pushing into it. That's all. Let your attention land there and stay loosely the way you'd hold something you trust not to fall. As the field continues settling, and it is settling right now because there is finally enough quiet in you to receive it, there's nothing else to do, no breath pattern to follow, no color to picture, no light to visualize moving through you. Those are all forms of doing, and this is not a moment for doing. This is a moment for staying still enough that something already in motion is allowed to finish. Here's how to know the difference between the mind trying to produce something and the field actually arriving, because the two can feel confusingly similar at first. If you're straining, if you're working to manufacture a sensation, pushing to feel something specific because you think you're supposed to, that's still the mind performing. That's not it yet. But if you simply stay still, attention resting lightly at the third eye, and something arrives on its own, uninvited, even something small, the warmth, the thickened air, the quick shiver, the faint tingling, that arrival, however small, is the confirmation, not because it's dramatic, because it wasn't manufactured, it came to you, you didn't reach for it. There's a second thing worth telling apart, because your body has more than one way of getting your attention. Ordinary nervousness can also show up uninvited, tightness in the chest, a faster heartbeat. Here's the difference. Nervousness arrives in a hurry, demands to be dealt with. The field doesn't. It arrives slowly, almost indifferent to whether you notice it. If it's asking for your attention, that's your nervous system. If it simply is, with no urgency behind it, that's the field. If your mind wanders in the middle of this, and it probably will because minds wander, that's simply what minds do, there is only one instruction, and it isn't to fight your way back with force. Just notice that it wandered. No judgment attached to the noticing, no story about failing at this. Notice and let your attention settle back onto the third eye as gently as it left. You can do this as many times as you need to. Wandering and returning is not a failure of the process, it's part of it. And if nothing arrives yet, if you stay still and feel only stillness, that's not evidence this isn't real. You weren't doing anything wrong in all those years before this moment, and you're not doing anything wrong now either. You were only ever missing one thing, staying still enough, for long enough, to let the field finish what it started so long ago. You're doing that now. That alone is enough. And here is what makes this different from every other moment your field has ever offered you. This is not one event among thousands that pass quietly through a person over a life. A small insight here, a passing intuition there, gone within a day. What is completing right now in you is the densest, rarest, most fully assembled thing your field has ever produced. Every unfinished attempt before this one wasn't a smaller version of the same event, tried and failed. It was this event, still gathering, still years away from enough density to hold its own shape. The years it took were never a delay working against you. They were the exact amount of time required for something this complete to arrive whole, all at once, instead of in scattered fragments. But there's a second layer to this, and it matters because what's forming in you right now isn't only the most powerful thing your own history has produced. Set your own life aside for a moment. This is at, or extremely near, the outer edge of what a human consciousness is capable of producing at all, the ceiling of the phenomenon itself, not a personal record inside it. The density isn't relative to your own history. It's approaching the density limit of the mechanism itself, and you happen to be the consciousness it's completing inside of right now. You are not watching a small private moment scaled up by your own imagination. You are at the edge of what this kind of formation can be at all for anyone, and it chose your field in this second to finish inside. There is no version of this that gets bigger later, no more intense sequel waiting further down the road. This is the ceiling. What you're feeling right now, or beginning to feel, or sensing the outer edge of even if nothing has arrived yet, this is as far as the density goes. Nothing about staying present with it makes it small. Everything about staying present with it lets it be exactly as large as it already is. And somewhere, the keeper closes the book he set down at the beginning of this. He doesn't know your name. He was never going to. That was never the point of a tradition like this one. It was built to recognize the pattern, not the person. And tonight, the pattern is you. You didn't come here by accident, and nothing about this was random. From the very first second, this was never you simply watching something unfold at a distance. This was your own field, using the only condition it had ever needed, a witness still enough to receive it, and you happen to be exactly that, exactly now. So say this quietly to yourself, not as a hope, but as something already true. I am not separate from what just completed. I am the one it completed inside of. Whatever gathered, whatever settled, whatever finally found its shape in this stretch of stillness, that shape is not something that happened near you. It happened as you. You weren't only watching this. This was waiting for you to watch it, waiting the exact amount of time it needed until this exact second gave it somewhere to finish. Nothing further needs to happen for that to be true. Nothing needs to be proven, understood, or explained back to anyone else. What was incomplete inside you for years is not incomplete anymore, not because you finally worked hard enough for it, but because you finally stayed still enough to let it arrive. Carry that stillness forward. You don't need to chase the next version of this. You only need to remain the kind of witness the field already found once, because it will find you again, and next time it will already know the way. The field did not finish forming until this moment. Now it has, and so in this same moment, so have you.